What's up, gamers? Dreamcastguy here, and today we gotta talk about Gamescom, because this massive gaming event has just kicked off, and already it is dropping some crazy bombshells. Big new game reveals, new gameplay for stuff we may have known about, and additionally, just some surprises that seem completely impossible, but I'm still excited about them. Now, what I decided to do is, I technically got up at like 7 a.m., I watched the sunrise, and then I decided to watch every single announcement that they did live, just to try and take notes and sort of digest it. And even doing that, I'm a little bit overwhelmed. So what we're going to try and do is go through the entire list of stuff I saw, going through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that we need to begin by talking about some Nintendo stuff, and then I want to go into Sony and Microsoft. Now, first and foremost, I think that starting off today was a little Nintendo Direct, one that was basically focusing on Nindies. And some of these were cool. I'm glad that stuff like Risk of Rain is coming to Switch, and some of these ports are fantastic. I'm glad that the Nintendo Switch is certainly getting more success because they're willing to put out games that maybe other people wouldn't pay attention to. A lot of these games look good, but to me they're not super interesting until they decided to finally reveal some actual dedicated gameplay to Witcher on Switch. Now, I hate to start this video off a little bit negative, but to be quite frank, Witcher on Switch does not look good. It looks really strangely bad. I thought that they would make some resolution sacrifices. I mean, of course, this is a much tinier piece of hardware. You're basically trying to play one of the biggest and longest games of all time on a tablet. Still, I'm a little bit taken aback. I'm still going to purchase The Witcher 3 on Switch because I want to play it and I do want to do a video on it, but I can say that my hype is a little bit cut down. On the other side of the coin, though, an announcement that came out today that did blow my mind and skyrocketed my hype is that Sony randomly announced that they have purchased Insomniac Games, the studio that produces Spider-Man, which means very likely we're going to be getting a bunch more of the masked vigilante. We're going to be getting a bunch more of the web swinger just all over the place. Now, we definitely heard rumors that they were already hard at work on a Spider-Man 2, but at this point, I think we could pretty much confirm that we're going to be getting a Spider-Man 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, at this point, everything is certainly a possibility. Now, something that is a little bit strange, but I guess I am excited for it, is that before Gamescom began, there were rumblings that Sega was going to reveal a new intellectual property, an all-new series or franchise, and a lot of us didn't really know what to expect. For the most part, when people imagine Sega, a lot of us think of things like Yakuza Kiwami or maybe something along the lines of Sonic Mania. We think of the classic franchises that they've already established, so hearing the promise of a new series certainly just kind of stokes the imagination. And what it actually turned out to be is a game called Mankind, which apparently looks a little bit like a strategy game. Like the trailer itself is a caveman inside of a satellite playing a bunch of techno, which I'm a fan of. I thought the soundtrack of the trailer was interesting, but I don't know what it's going to be necessarily. I think if I had to make a guess just off this little teaser they decided to show off, I think that it's going to be a game very much in the style of Civilization. Something about trying to cultivate an entire society or an entire race. Perhaps you're actually going to start at the very dawn of humanity and go through the ages to see if you can make them astronauts or conquerors. And I'll be completely frank, I never really got into Civilization. I know they're good games, but to me, they just seemed sort of too big. They're just something I was afraid to get into just because they were so absolutely explosively big already. This, though, since it is a new franchise, and since it does seem to have a little bit of a cartoonish aesthetic, I am going to be picking up Mankind whenever it eventually comes out, theoretically next year or the year after. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Gears of War before we start talking about some of the other big reveals, because there have been a ton that they showed off. Things like, of course, we saw more Borderlands, which, hooray, it's Borderlands. We saw a new indie game called Little Nightmares 2. I love the first Little Nightmares, so the fact that we're doing a follow-up, that's great. but I think it's important we talk about Gears 5 before we dig into a bunch of these other announcements, because finally they decided to come out and just show us some gameplay for the campaign. And it looks very much like Gears 3, and I mean that in a positive sense. Gears of War, the original trilogy, is some of my favorite shooting ever. I love the whole cover-based combat and trying to use a shotgun to turn somebody into basically glue. I love that. It is a very fun pace, and it looks like they're trying to basically replicate that, which I'm fine with. Some people will probably be a little bit offended that this is sort of kind of looking like a reboot, but to me, that's fine. Gears of War 4, a lot of people hated it. I liked Gears of War 4 because it was spooky and scary and kind of contained. Whereas this, it really looks like they finally got their feet wet and they realize, okay, we have the experience, we have the talent, and we have the necessary power to make our own Gears of War 3. And I am definitely on board with it. Now, I'm still a little bit skeptical just because we saw so little of it, but I like the idea of this weird twisting and turning mind control storyline possibly, where the main character Kate could be going psychotic throughout the course of our journey, which to me definitely makes for some very interesting elements. It certainly has my eyes locked on it, and I'm excited that we get to play it now in less than 3 weeks, which is just crazy that managed to sneak up on me. Now, I do want to talk about some other stuff that's kind of good and kind of bad, one of them being Need for Speed Heat. Now, the last Need for Speed game was a dumpster fire. It was so full of microtransactions that it was borderline unplayable, and so because of it, a lot of people flat out boycotted it. I mean, I'll be serious, there's probably a bunch of you out there who had no idea there even was a Need for Speed recently, but there was, and it was bad, with a capital B. But this one looks like they're trying to go back to basics. It looks like they're trying to make it have a lot more of the classic Need for Speed gameplay elements. Ramming cars, outrunning cops, open world mechanics as well, so you're actually going to be exploring the city. But the biggest thing that actually does seem like it's a smart choice is that it's going to have a very integrated day-night cycle. What the developers are saying is that there's going to basically be like 2 different phases to your just general actions. Like at night, you're going to have an opportunity to go on these big giant races and cruise around the streets illegally and probably get a bunch of cash, get new upgrades, get new pink slips, get a new stuff like that to make your general ability when it comes to going around the track a lot sharper. And then during the day, this is when you got to be a good law-abiding citizen. And this is sort of the time where you're going to actually be going to the garage to spend your money to get upgrades or just trying to traverse around. Now, we'll see how this actually works, but from the way they're describing it, I am definitely down for that. I think that could be cool, especially if we can actually control the day-night cycles ourselves. Now, what they showed about it seems a little bit cringy at times. Some of the general story elements seem really overly weird, but I will say that if we are able to, at the flip of a switch, go from street racing at night to enjoying a nice sunny day on the beach, now that to me is an interesting dichotomy that I do think could be good if they get it right. But honestly, this is Electronic Arts and I don't trust them. Something they also talked about in this trailer is that you could actually download an app and start downloading your cars and actually customizing your vehicles. No thanks, Electronic Arts. I'm not going to actually install any of your things, especially not an app, because I don't trust you at all. I bet that app's going to somehow have microtransactions in it. So after this, what they decided to do is really hammer us with smaller announcements, but a lot of them were very back-to-back, and some of them definitely seem like they could be fun. Like one of them is a new Predator game by the people who designed Friday the 13th, and I definitely love Friday the 13th, so I'm going to be playing that, probably just because I think it's fun to have asymmetrical multiplayer. We also saw some other things like Darksiders Genesis. But the major thing that I'm glad they showed is they definitely did a big, very proper reveal of new stuff about Modern Warfare, the new Call of Duty. Now, some of you know this. I actually made a video a while ago talking about how I was not hyped whatsoever for the idea of a new Modern Warfare. Not because I think it'll be bad, but I feel like I myself am experiencing franchise fatigue. The last couple Call of Duties have been good. I think Black Ops 4 was sharp. I think the World War II one was really, really interesting. I especially love the classic sniping mechanics. This one, though, when I first saw it, it didn't really get my blood pumping. I kind of just saw it and went, alright, that's another thing. Today, though, at Gamescom, they showed us more of the maps, more of the combat, more of the weaponry, and I definitely get it. I can tell that I made a mistake to judge it so quickly, and I'm very curious. So they've announced that there's going to be some sort of multiplayer alpha or beta or something that's actually going to be happening randomly at the end of this week on PlayStation 4, so I'm definitely going to be doing a big video on that. If you're not subscribed and you're stumbling upon my channel for the first time, please hit subscribe because I'm excited to play it and see more about it in depth, to see what's really working within that game underneath the hood. Now, the last game that we really need to talk about is definitely the most complicated. So even trying to begin getting into this is so complicated because it is a Hideo Kojima project. Today they did a very big and very illustrious reveal of Death Stranding, where they finally just showed us some general action, just walking around, exploring, and showed a bunch of new stuff. And oh gosh, people are going to hate me for this. I feel like I'm less hyped for Death Stranding now because they revealed a couple new characters, like a person who has a ghost baby, where their baby was born on the side of dead people, so it seems like she kind of has a living baby in the world of the dead. And so she, in the living world, can't move anywhere now because the ghost baby is only in that one location where she delivered it. So she's called Mama, and she stays in one spot to take care of her ghost baby? Now that to me is an insane stretch. It just seems like every character in this game has some sort of weird, dark, creepy backstory. Like, they've already talked about the guy who is like alive for 21 minutes and then dead for 7 minutes, and he's called the Dead Man. I mean, every character in this game is just so bonkers, it seems like they're the main character of their own game, which might be a little bit overwhelming, and I'm not sure in a positive sense. I'm still going to play Death Stranding. I very much want to try and get it myself, but something about this is just so wacky. Every time Hideo Kojima takes the stage, I feel like he's going to just make up some new nonsense to try and get attention. Like, I was joking around with some friends, and I was saying, like, you know, one of the characters, and this is a hypothetical I'm making up just for being silly, he's probably going to come up with a character called, like, Puke Face, whose magic ability is that he has to perpetually vomit forever and ever and ever because he has ghosts in his stomach, and if the alien ghosts aren't vomited out, then they give him kisses at night. I mean, that is just how crazy every character in this game is, like the most weird, eccentric short story encapsulated in a single individual. Will this game be good? Probably yes. I mean, I trust Hideo Kojima to a great degree, but still, even I, as a fan, have my limits. This has been a good press conference and a good day in general for gamers of every single ilk. If you like stuff on any platform, you're certainly going to be pleased, unless you like Google Stadia, because the biggest dumpster fire today, and excuse my sweat, it's 100 degrees here, the biggest dumpster fire has got to be the Google Stadia reveal. Oh god. There's nothing to even say. I mean, it's terrible. The Google Stadia press conference today was a series of trailers that we've already seen, most of them shown at places like E3, and yet they just decided to slap a Google Stadia logo at the end. Even the Google Stadia community themselves is actually mad. I mean, I saw a lot of people on their subreddit being like, screw this noise. Google Stadia is going to be a giant flop. I mean, they just suck so badly. Your exclusive games are not spectacular. We're not really going to own any of our games. Even if you try and come out on stage and be like, hey, we're also going to have something absolutely spectacular, like, check it out, here's Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk streamed is going to be terrible. How am I supposed to play an in-depth 100-hour-long RPG that has all sorts of crazy cool elements if I'm worried about my internet even flickering for a millisecond? Screw Google Stadia. It looks like an even bigger dumpster fire the more details I get on it. But what did you think? I've been watching a bunch of Gamescom coverage, but I genuinely want to know what you guys think. What are the games you think so far that have been good, and the stuff you think is just absolutely terrible? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Oh man, sometimes I get sweaty in videos. I apologize. A, I live in Texas, so it's super hot here. And B, this spotlight very much melts my face. But it's worth it to yell about video games. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.